Hello, my name is Max. I'm going to speak with you today about Facebook. Facebook is the premier social networking site of our times. As of February 2012, Facebook had 845 million active monthly users and 2.7 billion likes and comments per day. As Facebook continues to grow, so too do the different ways to analyze the ways that Facebook has impacted many different components of modern life and society. Some are for the better, and others are for the worst. Understanding the value behind Facebook from both a business and interpersonal perspective can help one understand the reasons that Facebook is so successful. There are several different perspectives in which we're going to look at Facebook. This presentation is going to look at the economic, sociological, technological, and privacy impacts that one can look at to analyze Facebook. There are several sources used. There's a citation page at the end of this presentation using all of the digital sites and resources that went into this, and my personal work experience is also something that I call on a lot for this presentation. So you might be wondering why I am someone who is able to speak to this directly. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm a senior marketing analyst at Mindshare. I work in digital analytics. Digital analytics is the tracking of metrics for all campaigns for my client. This includes mobile, Facebook, Xbox, PlayStation, and all of the online web campaigns and ads that you may see during your day-to-day browsing. I've been working on my client for the last 2 years. Over a year ago, I was promoted to senior analyst. I supervise a team of 3 and oversee the digital analytics for over 60% of our budget. I want to start looking at an economic perspective of Facebook. There are many benefits for using Facebook. Not only does Facebook have a huge number of users who create a diverse and targetable audience, but they give much information about themselves, which makes them easier to define into different targets. There's also an entire group of businesses such as Zynga who thrive on Facebook, and it's created an entire new market industry. There are some economic concerns regarding Facebook. One of them is how to determine the actual value of Facebook advertising, and the other is how much data of value can Facebook share without compromising its promise to protect user privacy. There's a huge potential target audience for ads. Because of the sheer number of users on Facebook and the huge amount of information that they share, the size of the audience is huge. Facebook has to leverage this audience against advertisers to promote more advertising. In doing this, though, they also need to ensure that they don't sell any data or compromise the privacy that their users find so important. Doing this could cost them the trust and business of many of the people who use their site and keep them in business. It's also worth noting that companies have been able to grow and thrive thanks to Facebook. One of the most popular games on Facebook is Farmville, which really put Zynga on the map, even though they do other huge games like Words with Friends. Despite having over $1.14 billion in earned revenue in 2011, over-generous stock options and a compensation package that had to kick in once the stock went public, so none of it could be given out prior to that time, led to an over $400 million operating loss for Zynga in 2011. Companies like Zynga are unique for analysts, financial analysts to look into as well, because since it's such a new field and since Facebook is obviously a great platform for many of these software applications, they are not sure if a company like Zynga can persevere and stay as strong of a company, because ultimately new entrants will have fresher ideas, and because Zynga was a first mover, they got in first, but once other entrants really enter the market, there's nothing unique enough about Zynga. They could keep a company like that differentiated from all of the other innovations that are happening on and around Facebook. It's also difficult to determine value with Facebook advertising. One of the struggles that we face at my office with our clients is trying to define to them what the value of a share is. What is the value of a like? Our client knows if they put in, let's say hypothetically, a $5 cost per action campaign, they know that they're paying $5 for every hypothetically like that they get. How much are those likes worth? How can they be translated into real-time sales and ROI so that there's an actual value that can be measured with the campaign? And unfortunately, this is something that Facebook doesn't have a clear answer yet. There are some sites that I looked at that have some suggestions, but all of them were firm numbers, and that's not really a reasonable expectation at this point, because a lot of the measurability, as I'll discuss later in Facebook, isn't really clear yet. So it's very difficult to define a value for every single company with every single different outcome and goal of their presentation, and pinpoint what one value of a like might be. It's also important to walk the thin line between privacy and profit. Again, it's important that Facebook not give up the trust of their users because they are trying to stay business with their advertising. Sociology and Facebook is another interesting thing that one can look at. Society relies on Facebook to connect with others, yet this comes with a price. Things like cyberbullying have become especially important to discuss, especially after several events, including suicides due to Facebook bullying. Teachers have also found increasing difficulties with Facebook because it brings up situations that they have to then address with their students that are difficult, and it's important to go easy on them because a lot of these issues like bullying and like issues like am I pretty, am I popular should also be dealt with by parents, so it creates a unique situation for educators. Facebook and cyberbullying has definitely been in the news a lot recently. A recent case from 2012 is Amanda Diane Cummings, 15, who was from Staten Island. She walked in front of a bus. Her family had later found she'd been bullied extensively on Facebook, threatened via Facebook messages, and otherwise very much harassed on Facebook. One of the problems with Facebook is that because people have their own accounts that aren't monitored, it creates an environment where people can basically say and do whatever they want, and there's no way to control that or look over that or make sure that people are kind and are being protected from these situations where in a place like school it could be overheard by a teacher or seen by someone and prevented that way. There also have been studies as recently as 2011 linking Facebook and depression. One quote from NBC Chicago is that prominent displays of status updates, flattering photos, and shots of happy-looking people provide a skewed version of reality and make some teens and young adults feel like they don't measure up. So this is another problem that sociologists, psychologists are going to have to start looking into, because since Facebook, again, is very new, we don't really know the long-term effects and how to really deal with this in the best way. Technology in Facebook is also very important. That's where I work. Technology has been greatly evolved due to Facebook. Not only are there new applications like discussed above with Zynga, there have also been improvements on interface and also developments in the evolution of tracking tools so that advertisers can be better informed about the value of their advertising. Improving the user interface is very important. It's usually done based off of user feedback, but it also represents an advancement in technology. Doing things like improving the number of pictures and the quality of the pictures that can be posted is not only a benefit to the user, but it also represents that Facebook has been evolving with their technological work. Metrics are something that's very close to my heart. This is where my job comes in. Companies like DoubleClick and Atlas are provided view-through pixels, meaning they can track the impressions and the clicks of their campaigns on Facebook. What they can't do is directly track their shares, their likes. Facebook likes to keep this data close to themselves. But again, as we discussed earlier, there's no real way to define the value of these tools. So Facebook is finding that they have to walk a thin line between providing metrics to their clients that are accessible and measurable, but also finding a way to define what those metrics mean. Also, due to things like their new timeline feature, some campaigns that have already been in planning need to be re-optimized to build off of the new template, which is good in the long run because it does ultimately give us more opportunities to drive a lot of the long-term goals our Facebook campaigns tend to have. But it's a unique challenge at this point because the Facebook conversion is being rolled out at once to lots of business pages, and so you have to kind of work retroactively to optimize a campaign for a layout that you didn't know previously. But again, these are just the growing pains that right now Facebook is facing with their advertisers, and it's interesting to see how they continue to measure things like your shares, and then they also measure how many of your friends could talk about this and how many of those people have been reached. So they've really broken a lot of strides and new frontiers in the terms of in metrics and digital analytics. It's the last problem we're going to talk about is the privacy problem. Privacy plays a very important role in the Facebook story. People are sharing every factor of their lives, pregnancies, deaths, births, marriages. All of these things are coming out on Facebook, which leads to an unanswerable question, which is how much information is too much and what kind of information isn't really appropriate for public consumption. We also face the problem of not truly understanding who our audience is. While Facebook does offer privacy control options, if someone is not educated in how to navigate them, they really won't be useful. So the handout that we've given along with this conversation, with this presentation, pardon me, is in fact a handout with just a high overview of some Facebook privacy rules, not rules, but just guidelines that you could use to protect yourself a bit more and hide yourself in a little bit more when you're out there on the Facebook world interacting with other people. But one of the things that we think about, or that I think about, I guess when I say we, it's because I do talk about this at work, is one of the things that we think about is who is our audience really? We know what people write about themselves, but we don't actually know who these people are. So this is a very superficial problem on an advertising level. It's a very real problem from a person-to-person level. If for people who don't truly know the people on their friends list, you don't really know the person that's taking in these private moments of your life, who's reading about your vacation, who's knowing that your house is going to be unattended for the next couple of weeks. But more than that, some of these people that you might have gone to high school with or elementary school with, but you haven't seen in 10, 15 years, same general problem. You don't actually know who the people that you're telling all of this information to really are. And that's something that can be very risky and can be very problematic and is just something that people need to stay aware of. Another problem is that what goes on Facebook stays on Facebook forever. This is something that we all, lots of paranoid people like myself might have said years and years ago. But the reality is it's true. So just to delete an account, it takes 2 weeks. And if you log in at any point during those 2 weeks, it automatically reactivates your account. So they try to make it difficult for you to actually get away for good. And even then, they keep it on their servers. There was, in 2008, the Craigslist killings murder case happened, and they subpoenaed the suspect's Facebook records. They turned over 60 pages of information, all of his status updates, comments, IM conversations, friends, people he had unfriended, groups he had been and not been a part of. They turned over everything. So now, instead of just a subpoena, they do need a warrant to collect that information. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show it's always there. Facebook never forgets. And even if you're not the victim, and even if you're not the suspect in a murder investigation, you still need to know that everything you've said on Facebook is there on Facebook. And that's not something that makes everyone comfortable. So the conclusion of this presentation is that with great power comes great responsibility, which is a great quote of mine, or not of mine, of Stan Lee's, that I happen to love very, very much. Facebook is a remarkable tool that enables people to connect to family and friends in a way that they never could before. It's opened the world up to us. With this new tool, there are long-reaching effects, though, including economic, sociological, technological, and privacy perspectives that really can't be ignored. Just because most of us use it every day doesn't mean that there aren't wide-reaching ramifications to all of these components. And these perspectives have positives and negatives. They have pros and cons. Since Facebook is a very new tool, it's important to remember that there's still much time that will be needed to truly, fully understand all of the impacts of such a huge, unifying, connective technology, and to really see this whole human experiment of how people deal with it is going to come about to fruition, and the long-term impacts are very exciting to think about. Thank you very much for your time.